Without wasting your time, we are going to share with you 12 psychological facts that you can easily apply in your daily life, starting today, to make your life easier. Once you know these facts, you will not remain the same as before. So, let's begin. Feature, positive effect. Have you ever noticed that when someone is in a relationship, they give a lot of importance to their partner in the beginning, but after some time, they start taking them for granted? However, when their partner suddenly breaks up with them, they begin to feel their absence deeply. But this doesn't happen only in relationships. You might also feel the importance of water the most when, due to some reason, there is no water at home for a day or two. Suddenly, even basic tasks like bathing or freshening up become difficult. At that moment, you realize how essential water actually is. This is called the feature positive effect, a psychological concept that states humans naturally pay attention only to things that are present in front of them, while they ignore the things that are absent. For example, as long as our eyes or teeth are working fine, we don't even notice them. But the moment we experience pain, we suddenly realize how important they are. Similarly, when we have a fever, we pray to recover quickly and realize how wonderful normal life is. This psychological fact is widely used in marketing and advertisements. They highlight only the positive aspects of a product to capture your attention while ignoring its negative sides. This influences our decisions and sometimes leads us to make incorrect assumptions. That's why knowing this psychological fact is very important. Food, sex, danger, primitive priorities. Whether you consciously want to or not, your brain is automatically wired to pay attention to food, sex, and danger. Psychologist Susan Weinschenk explains in her book Neuroweb Design that this behavior originates from the oldest parts of our brain, which are always in survival mode. After all, survival is our ultimate goal. That's why our brain constantly scans the environment and processes 3 fundamental psychological questions. Can this be eaten? Is sex possible with this person? Could this be dangerous for me? These instincts are deeply embedded because without food, we would die. Without relationships, the human species would cease to exist. And if our life is in danger, we instinctively stay away. Playing dumb effect. In his book Surrounded by Idiots, Thomas Erickson shares the story of Helena, a salesperson who had to close a deal with a rude and aggressive CEO. She met him in a parking lot, and seeing his car, she simply said, "Wow." Helena had no interest in cars, but the CEO was passionate about them. This led the CEO to start a conversation about cars, while Helena simply listened attentively. Her focused listening impressed the CEO so much that he signed the deal. This is known as the playing dumb effect, a strategy we often use when we want a specific outcome. When you act as if you know less and allow the other person to share their knowledge, you not only leave a good impression, but also gain valuable insights. This psychological trick can take your conversation skills to the next level. Without saying much, you make the other person feel valued, leading them to say, "It was great talking to you." Even famous communication expert Dale Carnegie always recommended this technique. Provide a choice. There's a psychological trick that allows you to influence people into making the decision you want them to make. If you want someone to choose an option that benefits you, always present choices that indirectly favor you. A classic example of this is seen in restaurants. Have you ever noticed that when waiters take orders, they often mention specific dishes? By presenting these specific options, they influence your decision-making, and you unconsciously end up choosing one of the suggested dishes. Apple releases products in a single series, like the iPhone. If you want to make decisions in your favor using this psychological trick, you just need to give the other person some options. This psychological fact is widely used in marketing, negotiations, and daily interactions to subtly guide people's choices without them even realizing it. Total tendency. Have you ever felt that even after giving your best, you still didn't perform as well as you could have? Well, according to psychologists, Truly intelligent people always consider themselves average, while those with average intelligence believe they are the smartest. This is called the Dunning-Kruger effect. This effect prevents a person from recognizing their own strengths and weaknesses. For example, you might have noticed some students saying they haven't studied before an exam, yet they end up scoring well. It's not that they haven't studied. Intelligent people often underestimate their preparation. On the other hand, some people perfectly fit the phrase, "Fools are blind to their own foolishness." To overcome this, we must always keep learning and avoid thinking that we know everything. Instead, we should aim to be good listeners and lifelong learners. The Ben Franklin effect. When you ask someone for a favor, the chances of them liking you increase. This might sound strange, but the logic is simple. When someone helps you, they justify their actions by believing they like you. For example, I helped this person, which means they must be good. Otherwise, I wouldn't have helped them. This strengthens their preference for you. This effect was discovered by American polymath Benjamin Franklin, which is why it is called the Ben Franklin effect. Instead of impressing his political rival, Franklin once asked him to lend a book. His rival found it odd, but agreed. Franklin later returned the book with a thank you note. This small favor turned their rivalry into friendship. This proves that people don't just help those they like. They also tend to like those whom they help. Mean World Syndrome. Dr. George Gerbner described Mean World Syndrome as a psychological phenomenon, where people begin to see the world through the lens of the content they consume. For example, if someone watches a lot of violent news, they may start believing that the world is extremely dangerous. Their perspective becomes negative. On the other hand, those who watch comedy and fantasy content tend to have a more positive outlook. The type of content you consume shapes your thoughts, beliefs, and emotional state. That's why it is crucial to carefully choose what you consume. Media doesn't just entertain, it programs your perception of reality. In today's world, those who smartly avoid negative content escape this psychological trap. Self-serving bias. Self-serving bias is a psychological tendency where people take credit for their successes, but blame others for their failures. For example, if someone makes a profit in the stock market, they credit their investing skills. But if they suffer a loss, they blame the market. Similarly, if a marriage is successful, a person credits their efforts. But if problems arise, they blame their partner. Blaming others for failures prevents self-improvement. That's why it's essential to be honest with yourself, accept feedback, and acknowledge your mistakes. Taking responsibility for your actions is the key to maturity, intelligence, growth, and success. Best smile in the world. Did you know? There are 9 different types of smiles. These include light, dominant, swift, flirty, extra, and more. One of them is called the Duchenne smile, considered the best and most high-standard smile. A Duchenne smile is a genuine expression of joy. It is not limited to the mouth, but also lifts the cheeks and creates a natural sparkle in the eyes. It is a true smile that reflects positive emotions and is often seen as more trustworthy, friendly, and sincere. If you want to improve your body language, practice developing a Duchenne smile. The choice paradox. Imagine standing in a massive shoe store where multiple shoes of the same price are available, and you have to pick just one. Initially, you might feel excited, but soon, the overwhelming options may lead to stress. This is known as the paradox of choice. Psychologist Barry Schwartz explained in his book, The Paradox of Choice, that having too many options doesn't always lead to happiness. Instead, it can overwhelm the brain and cause unnecessary anxiety. When choices are limited, we tend to be more satisfied. For example, on YouTube, we often prefer to watch the same creators, rather than exploring too many options. Having too many choices doesn't always lead to better decisions. Sometimes, it causes more confusion. That's why it's better to limit choices and focus on what truly matters, instead of being distracted by everything. Risk reduction effect. According to psychologists, people who think too much about backup plans tend to perform worse than those who focus entirely on their main plan. When you consider a plan B, your brain unconsciously accepts that plan A might fail, leading to a lack of full dedication. This follows expectancy theory, which states that your motivation depends on how much you believe in your success. That's why, while it's good to plan for the future, don't focus so much on a backup plan that it weakens your commitment to your primary goal. Solomon's paradox. Have you noticed that it's easier to solve others' problems than your own? This is called Solomon's paradox. This concept is named after King Solomon, who was famous for giving wise advice, but struggled with his personal decisions. Like him, most of us can analyze others' issues logically. But when dealing with our own problems, we get overwhelmed by emotions. To overcome this, you should use the self-distancing strategy. Whenever you face a problem, try looking at it from an outsider's perspective and analyze it as if you were advising someone else. Even we use this psychological effect. When we feel stuck, we ask ourselves, if someone else were in my situation, what advice would I give them? This approach helps us think less emotionally and more logically. Conclusion. If you made it this far, it means you have better focus than most people and a strong interest in human psychology. If you found this information helpful, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future content. Thank you for watching.